Welcome to Between Two Psychs, a podcast where two psychologists and board-approved supervisors deep dive into many of the questions and challenges that provisional psychologists and early career therapists face in everyday practice, during training, throughout the internship, and beyond as they progress into working more independently. Your hosts, Isabelle Tombleson and Claire Trevitt, talk about a range of topics specifically relating to psychologists and therapists who are just starting out.
Morning, Claire.
Morning, Isabelle. Good to be back.
It's good to be back. We have had a couple of false starts this morning, but we've finally managed to get our recording going, and it is great to be here for season 3. We've got a lot to share with everyone for this season. And Claire, you suggested this episode because it is the start of a new year, and we thought, let's help everyone to get ahead and start to think about the planning for their CPD for this year.
Yes, absolutely, because it's certainly something that I've been thinking about as I've been putting my plan together. And so as registered psychologists in Australia, one of the first things that we need to do as part of our continued professional development each year, which actually starts at the beginning of December and when our opera registration renews, is to put together a learning plan for the year. And then our professional development and our peer consultation or peer supervision, and I will just explore the differences there, will ultimately designed around meeting that learning plan for the year. So it's really about planning ahead and then making sure that we are actually keeping ourselves accountable for our own plan.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's easy, I guess, to put something like this aside when we've gone through 2 years of a registrar provisional psych program of study. We've had to do logbooks, we've had to do supervision, everything's mandatory. We get registered and we think, oh, this is just easy now. I can just not worry about all of that. But the opposite is true. This is still really an important task. And I think we don't want to learn the hard way by having to go through maybe being audited by AHPRA and scrambling to demonstrate how we've met all of the requirements. Let's not put ourselves in that position. Let's get ahead of the game, but also start to think about, like, how do I want to develop as a psychologist? What are the things that would be important for me to learn and gain knowledge on? And that will help you to remain active in your growth as you continue in the profession, and probably help to reduce burnout, help to keep you feeling satisfied and still interested in what we do.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because we do want to enjoy what we do. And so for me, one of the things when I'm putting my learning plan together is I think, what do I want to learn about? What's important for my learning, but also what's going to interest me? What's going to energize me? And putting that into place. I will say, yes, it is a process that we do need to log, and absolutely getting behind is not something I'd ever recommend. But it is a lot easier than the logbooks and all of the logging that is required throughout the internship. So that is the good news.
Yeah. It is less onerous, but there is still a requirement that we keep those logs. So let's share some of our suggestions maybe for keeping a log and where people can go to have these, what are they called, Claire?
To log out.
The free spreadsheets that we can get. Yeah.
Should we start again, that part?
Yes, let's start again, that part. I can't remember where we left off. But yes, so why don't we first start off by sharing with our listeners where they can access the free logbooks and to start to prepare and design this plan for themselves.
Yes, there are a few ways actually that we can log this. One way is actually to just find your own way and to log it yourself, so you can create your own type of spreadsheet. What I do actually for my supervision sessions is I actually create my own contact, I guess, for myself in the software that I use, which is Power Diary. And then I go into my log and I write down my notes during my supervision session, so I've got everything in the same place. And so for me, that's a really solid way of making sure that those records are kept. But in addition to that, we do need to then create a log of all of the other professional development that we do throughout the year. And there are a number of ways we can do this. If you're a member of a professional association, the APS have a logging system. I'm not a member of the APS, but I used to be. And it was a very good system where you could go online and you could enter your information, and then it would collate that so you could generate a report at the end of the year.
Wow.
Yeah, it was excellent. It was excellent. And the AAPI, I believe, have something quite similar. I haven't used their system either, but I have seen it looks like a spreadsheet and it looks quite straightforward to use. It's really just finding a way to collate the information that works for you. And the other way that I've found that I've used over the past couple of years is a software which is free to use called OzMed, which is
I've not heard of that.
yeah, it's the website is ausmed.com.au, and that has a similar system where you enter information. It's designed for health professionals, so not just psychologists, but other health professionals, but it allows you to put a learning plan in, and it allows you to allocate activities to that learning plan.
Thank you so much for those suggestions, Claire. Look, I think many of us are using all sorts of methods for keeping a track of our CPD and our supervision. Why don't we talk about this concept of creating a plan for the year? Because here we are, it's the beginning of 2025. What do we want our listeners to be doing at this time of year?
Yes, I said it really is about creating a plan that's designed to meet your needs. And so I think all of us may have learning needs that come up from time to time. And I've been registered I started my internship 25 years ago, actually, in 2000. And I still find plenty of things that I can put on my learning plan. There's always updates and new information to take in, and different interventions to learn, or different strategies, or different research. So there's always something to learn. And so I'm often surprised when I hear people say, I don't know what to put on there. I don't know what I'm actually going to do this year. Because for me, I find it quite exciting. Something I think, okay, what's going to interest me?
What's new in the world of psychological science and research, or even for me, I guess at a different stage of my career, I'm thinking, how can I strengthen and improve my skills in the certain therapy modalities that I tend to use? So I might have done intro, EMDR, which I did do 18 months ago now. And am I going to start to think about, let's step that up, let's get serious about getting myself ready for the next level of EMDR training? That's just an example.
And that's a great example. And I'll actually maybe think it might be good to I'll share my learning plan for this year, because I did just put it a couple of weeks ago.
Please,
so
yes.
Work in the trauma space. And so for me, a learning plan is always to continue to develop my knowledge of trauma. And at the moment, for me, a big focus is looking at how trauma is stored in the body and learning about different somatic approaches to working with trauma, because that really complements my own training in EMDR. And I find it really has added a lot of benefit to my work with clients, particularly around clients who are dissociated or extremely activated. I'm also an EMDR accredited practitioner, but I would like to develop that further. So one of my goals for this year was to work towards becoming an EMDR consultant, which is going to be a very long journey. I need to see a significant number of clients. I think it's around 75 clients for EMDR therapy.
Yeah.
And as somebody that has a smallish practice of clients and a larger supervision practice, that's going to take me, when working long term, it's going to take me a while. And so I've started consultation with an EMDR consultant, and I've started to brush up my knowledge there. And my third goal for the year was to look at AHPRA's new competencies for psychologists, because as a supervisor, it's really important for me to understand those guidelines and to understand exactly what our requirements are as psychologists. So some of that might involve reading and research and just collating the information and creating some resources for myself and the people that I supervise. And they were my three learning goals for 2025.
That's generous of you to share with us your learning goals for this year. And I like to hear that you have documented these goals in some sort of format. So you can reflect on this at stages throughout the rest of this year, and you'll be able to monitor how you're tracking with that. And I think it's important to say that just because we set these goals at the beginning of the year, it doesn't mean we have to outwardly achieve them all in full. It's more just a way for us to be accountable and keep track, and help us to ensure that we're at least doing something towards these goals and we're not just floundering.
Yes, it doesn't have to be like an absolute achievement. I think my EMDR consultancy is probably going to be on that maybe 4 or 5 years even. It's a long-term goal for me. And I'm not going to achieve that by the end of the year, but it is about me keeping myself accountable. It is about making sure that I book those regular consultation sessions, and about making sure that I'm logging my sessions and all of the things that I need to start to do in order to, and also understanding what it means for me to become an EMDR consultant and what that's going to require of me. And some of that I don't know yet. So sometimes these are very big goals and we're working towards those big goals. Other times it can be, I'm going to complete training in schema therapy this year, and booking that training and then logging that training, and that goal's achieved. So sometimes it can be very simple, and sometimes it can be something much more complex that you work towards. The point is, as you said, Isabelle, it's around keeping ourselves accountable, because when I go to log my PD, every time I do a workshop or every time I have a supervision session, I have to say whether or not that is going towards one of those learning goals.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Is this actually going towards my development plan for myself professionally? Yeah. And I think that's the whole point of us talking about this, is sometimes we might get a bit relaxed and think, oh, I'm doing the PD, I'm attending these workshops and I'm doing these readings and doing my supervision, but is it actually contributing to anything meaningful overall?
Yes, because we all do have either gaps in our knowledge, and I think those gaps maybe do begin to close up a little bit later on. But I think I couldn't possibly say that I know everything that I want to know. There's always something more to learn. And so it is thinking about, okay, what are the gaps that relate to my practice? So for example, if you are in a clinic and you are required to conduct psychometric assessments, you might want to be looking at different psychometric assessment tools and training in those areas. You might want to be looking at training in neuroaffirming therapies or assessments, if that's an area that you work in. And so there are lots of changes that have occurred as well. I think we're always continuing to develop and keeping in line with best practice. And that's where I think some of those new competencies that AHPRA have brought in, it really does open up a lot of opportunity for people around cultural competency, neuroaffirming practice, deliberate practice, trauma-informed care. And I just really welcome all of these additions.
Yeah.
I think many of us, even with lots of experience, are going to look at that list and think, actually, there's a bit of work to do.
That's actually a really good suggestion. If we do have anyone listening and they're not sure about what they would be interested in putting in their learning plan for this year, maybe going to the new competency guideline could be a great place to start.
It could be. It absolutely could be. The other thing I'd recommend for very newly registered professionals, regardless of whether you're a psychologist or a psychotherapist or a mental health worker, is getting really good training in a model of therapy.
Yeah.
Often during the internship, we don't necessarily have the funds or during masters, we don't have the funds to be able to put towards, say, a 3 or 4 day training in a particular model. But I do usually recommend to the people that I supervise that either during the internship or the training, if they possibly can, or at least quite soon afterwards, to think about a model of therapy that resonates, and to get training to a point where you feel that you're competent in one model at least, because that will really help with your confidence in case formulation and treatment planning.
And intervention, ultimately.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It'll give you confidence in doing the treatments with your clients. and some satisfaction. I think it's really a really good suggestion. And even if it's just doing another 3-day or 2-day session on CBT, just bed down everything that you've learned in the professional pathway that you've completed to get to the registration point. I know a lot of people who did. I did that, yeah. But as you will all find out, CBT is only the beginning for many of us. We often to work out how we can go a bit deeper with our clients, especially when there's trauma involved. So that's such a good suggestion. Thinking about how we can summarize what we've discussed today, Claire, we have really wanted to motivate our listeners to think about how they can start the year off in an organised and thoughtful manner when it comes to planning their professional development for this year. We provided some suggestions on how you can record your professional development and your supervision hours and the benefits and costs to a few different methods that you can use there. And Claire has been very generous in providing an example of her professional development plan for this year. So hopefully this has been useful for everyone to hear, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon.
We certainly do. Bye, everyone.
If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave us a 5-star rating. It really helps others find the show. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Between Two Psychs for more updates and resources. For more information and to explore everything we offer, head over to our website, betweentwopsychs.com.au. We appreciate your support and we'll see you next time.